Hey guys, my name is Bart Komar, and in this video, I'm going to show you guys exactly how I built this low-level deck and cover it with composite decking. We're going to talk about how to lay it out so your deck is actually square, the framing of the structure, and the decking material, and how to install it. But first, let me show you why we're building this deck, because it came from a need, not a want. You guys will understand in a second. Oh, not again. 4! Hey, you see this? Why do you always have to poop right outside the door? You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna build a deck all through here. He doesn't care. Anyways, we're gonna build a deck right in front of the door so he has to find a new pooping spot. Welcome to the Komar project. This is all your fault. Are you gonna clean this up? Yeah. All right, so this is the back of our suburban home. Nothing special about it, just a rectangular building. But we're gonna be giving it a huge transformation by adding a large composite deck that's gonna give us years of maintenance-free enjoyment in the backyard. The plan is to have it framed with traditional pressure-treated lumber and deck it with composite decking from Trex. To start the prep work, I wanted to make sure that no weeds actually grow through the deck. So I used the grass killer to spray the lawn area where the deck is going to be. Next, I needed to lay out the dimensions for the deck. And somehow I lost the footage of the actual layout, so I'm going to be breaking down the process on a smaller scale for you guys, but this is exactly the same thing that I did. So I know I want my deck to be 18 by 24 feet, and to help make sure it's square and to mark the location of my posts, I made a couple of batten boards. And all this is just a couple of pieces of scrap wood that you screw together into a U-shape and then later pound it into the ground. And you're going to need 8 of these batten boards to help with the layout. So after you get them all put together, you hammer them into the ground around where the deck is going to be, 2 on each corner, making an L shape. Then you can tie 4 pieces of string to the battens that are facing each other. And what this does is it allows you to move the string from side to side to make sure that your deck is square. And to check for square of a rectangle or a square, you measure from corner to corner across the rectangle and again on opposite corners. If your measurements are exactly the same, you're good, you're square. If not, you can just adjust the string left or right until you get the same exact measurement from corner to corner. Then, using the string as a reference, I spray painted the location of the corners for the deck and all my post locations. Next came the exhausting task of digging all the post holes. And to help with that, I rented a gas auger. This is one of those tools that if you're building a large deck like I am, is absolutely indispensable. We live right outside of Chicago, so our winters can be pretty cold, and our required hole depth is 42 inches deep. So hand digging all these holes would be backbreaking. Now, before starting a project like this, I would definitely call Julie and check all your local codes. Also, contacting your local building department may save you lots of headaches and structural mistakes before you start. Next, I needed to pour the concrete from my frost footings. A frost footing is a chunk of concrete no less than 6 inches thick that your post sits on inside the hole. It also needs to sit below the frost line, so my actual hole depth was 48 inches. I'm using about 1/3 of a bag per post, and then I just add some water and mix it directly in the hole. Stop it. I know what you guys are thinking. Not cool. That sounds good. Okay, I'm done with the frost footings. It's 10 o'clock at night, but at least tomorrow I'm gonna be able to start framing, put my posts in, and building the deck. Oh, glory days. For my posts, I'm using 10-foot treated 4x4 posts that I cut in half. This way I don't have to worry about calculating the height right now, and it leaves me with plenty of posts to work with. And once my deck is completely framed, I can trim them to the height of the deck. You guys will see a little bit later what I mean. Next, I set my posts in the holes using the string from the batten boards as a reference. Make sure they are plump with the post level, backfill them with dirt, and pack them down really well with the back end of a post utility bar. I'll have a link to it and all the tools and materials I used on this build in the description below. And with that, I had all my posts set, and it was time to spend some quality time with Honey Bunny and try to teach Thor how to climb a ladder like the agile and nimble beast that he is.
Good job. Come on, keep going. Good boy.
Boy. After having some family fun, it was time to get the height of where the deck framing is actually going to be in reference to my back door. Now I could have done this next step with a laser, but I figured not everybody has one, so I marked the closest post using a level. Then using a long straight 2x4, I screwed one end of it to the post and clamped the other one with a clamp. I then placed the level on top of the 2x4, got my bubble in the middle, and I knew I was good from post to post. Then I just repeated the process till all my posts were marked with the height of the deck.
Okay, time to start framing. This is my favorite part of the entire project because it's framing. It's rough, right? You screw up by a little bit, you can fix it.
Since I'm working mostly by myself on this project and holding a 16-foot 2x8 is not easy, I screwed a scrap piece of wood to one end of the post and laid my outside ledger on top of it. Then I could nail it to the post using 3¼ inch hot dip nails. Now these nails are just holding the ledger in place for me. I'm going to come back later and screw lag bolts in for structural strength. I then repeated the same process for all the ledgers around the deck. Since my deck is too large to span the 2x8 joists all the way from end to end, I needed to split the deck in half according to my local codes. So in the middle of my deck, I'm constructing a sandwich beam, or some people call it a double beam. Basically, you install a ledger on both sides of your posts in the middle of the deck and run joists from them. This is going to allow me to add shorter joists on each side of the beam and still maintain the deck size. Now to figure out a way around this concrete step that we have outside of our door. To do this, I'm going to construct a beam that will sit under the ledger and span the length of the deck. This beam is going to let me run joists on top of it all the way up to the house with a short cantilever. And when I get to the step, I can just notch a few of them. This is going to make total sense in just a minute. After all my beams are installed, I can finally cut off the tops of all the posts that were left over and start laying out the joist locations. I hooked my tape measure to the end of the deck and placed a mark every 16 inches. Then with a carpenter square, I transfer the line down on the ledger. This way, I know that the joist is going to be square to the frame. And I repeat the same thing on the double beam. Then I pre-drill holes for all my lag bolts. These are self-tapping 5/16 by 4 inch ceramic coated construction lags made by PowerPro and are awesome for deck building. Next, I cut all my joists to fit between the ledgers. If your deck is square, the joists should all be the same dimension. But if not, don't worry about it. Just cut them all individually. Then I toe nailed each joist to hold it in place and use the speed prong on the joist hanger while I nail it in place using 1.5 inch galvanized nails. Just make sure you put a nail in every single hole of that hanger. For the joist sitting on the beam, I used hurricane straps to hold them in place.
Alright, when you're installing these rafter joists, make sure you put them on the opposite sides of each other. Let me show you. So this joist here, I put both rafter joists on the same side. And watch it wobble. It's fairly easy to make it move, right? Now, on ones that I put one here and one on the opposite side, this thing is absolutely sturdy. It is not going anywhere. So make sure you're doing it this way and not this way, where they're both on the same side.
Next, using a circular saw and a jigsaw, I notched out the joists that are going over the concrete step and installed them in the same way as the others. And then guys, it's just a repetitive process of cutting and nailing until you have all of your joists in place. And before you know it, it's time to install the decking. But before I could do that, I had to put down some landscape fabric to ensure that the weeds don't grow through. And then I covered it with a ton of gravel. And I literally mean a ton of gravel. This will ensure that the fabric stays in place and doesn't rip and blow away over time. After what felt like a million barrels of gravel, I started working on the stairs. Since my yard slopes quite a bit from the house, which is great for drainage, but difficult for figuring out stringers, I went with a simple box construction. To support my stairs, I'm installing some 18 by 18 concrete pavers every 6 feet. I used paver gravel to level them out and made sure they were even with my deck all the way around.
After the concrete pavers were in place, I could install the 2x8 16 treated boards to make up the frame of my stairs. This worked out perfectly since my stairs are 7.5 inches tall and I didn't even need to rip down the 2x8s, since each 2x8 is 7.5 inches. After I had the bottom step installed, Honey Bunny joined me with her sexy tool belt to cut all the support pieces, which are 16 inches apart. I can't tell you guys how much I appreciate it when she comes out to help me on projects. Not only do we finish them faster, she makes me have a good time.
Second time, just like,
What happened? After giving our cat a heart attack, we finished up all the bracing on the stairs and started working on the middle and the outside bracing of the deck. This is where our two-tone border is going to go. To give the stairs a little pop, I'm installing a white fascia from Azak. And to make the install easy, the screw packet comes with the screws, obviously, the correct bit, and what looks like a little crack baggie with plugs to cover the screw holes to make it look seamless. After the fascia was installed, I started working on the composite decking border, which is coastal buff from Trex. I cut 45-degree miters in the boards and pre-drilled them on the corners before driving in the screws. For the steps and on the inside of the deck, we chose a color called Saddle, with the intent that the coastal bluff and saddle will contrast each other enough to give the deck a little bit more character. On connections where two boards meet, I like to reinforce the frame by adding some additional 2x4 pieces on both sides. This way each board has its own backing and can be screwed down much easier. Next, fighting the 100-degree weather, we laid out half of the 12-foot decking boards to be screwed down. Yes! Feel better? Have some fun once in a while. After cooling off a bit, I used the roundover bit in my router and gave the boards a soft roundover where they meet the border for a smooth transition. Then, using a hidden deck fastener, we drove in 1 7/8" edge deck screws made by Camo. This deck fastener is designed to drop a screw in on both sides of it and drive them into the side of the board using the provided bit with each box of screws. Now what's great about this tool is that you don't have to use it just on composite decking. You can use it on regular treated boards to get a nice concealed fastener appearance. It's looking like a
it works.
While Honey Bunny took her well-deserved deck nap, I went through and installed the rest of the planks on one side, ripped them down with my circular saw so I could put in the divider pieces using the same border color. This creates a design feature and I don't have to join any boards together on the deck. Then it was back to screwing down the boards on the second part of the deck, cut off the ends with my circular saw, finish up my border, and just like that, this deck is done. And that's it. So there you go, guys. The deck is finally complete and we couldn't be happier with the way it turned out. But more importantly, Thor actually found a new spot to go pee. Yeah, there's no controlling a bulldog. I've given up. So the size of the deck is 18 by 24 with 2 steps down that wrap around on 2 sides. On the opposite side, we have some curved stairs that lead down to our patio area. That area is still not finished because the bending of the composite decking is actually giving me some problems.
But as soon as I figure it out, I'm gonna release that video for you guys so you can see how that process went. So if you guys have any questions or need clarification on the process, leave those comments down below and I'll get to them as soon as possible. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and hitting the bell notification so you don't miss upcoming builds. Thank you so much for joining me on this experience. I'll see you guys next time. Okay, so tonight I'm done with pouring my I don't
Do not lick me. Do not.
liquor like a lollipop.